everything is always in a state of change. Change is the one constant, but all change is only a moment in time.
Hello and welcome to Change in the Market, a weekly look at the changing real estate market. We'll break down what's changed over the last week and give you actionable advice on how to handle the changes in your business and personal life. I'm Brian Shilligo, and I know very little about real estate, but luckily I'm joined by Chris Masiello, the president and CEO of Better Homes and Gardens, the Masiello Group and affiliates. Chris has nearly 40 years of experience and is a recognized trendsetter and leader in the real estate and home ownership service industries. Chris, how are you doing today?
Good, Brian. Great to be with you. I'm excited about this new format.
It should be a lot of fun. Yeah, I agree. I think I'm looking forward to it a lot. So basically, we're going to get right into it here. Every week, we're going to ask three very simple questions and get your breakdown of them. And so we're going to start with the first one right away, which is what has changed in the last 7 days in the housing market?
Well, for all the conversation, Brian, about interest rates going up, actually interest rates went down. So 30-year fixed rate is somewhere in the 6.5% range. And, mortgage applications and mortgage demand is at a 20-year low. And so although there's, interest rate pressures for interest rates to go up, the actual mortgage demand is less. And so I think that we're going to, see some moderation in interest rates. And I think to go along with that, for everyone to kind of understand, is that somewhere between a third to half of all buyers are paying cash. So even though interest rates are going up, it's not affecting 100% of the market like it used to, or up to 100%. It's really only impacting somewhere between, a third and 50%. And although that's still impactful because we've seen sales slow, the reality of it is it's kind of giving the market a little bit of a breather. And we're seeing inventory come up a little bit. And now, there's an axiom that I think is applied for many years, still applies today, that 6 months of inventory or less is a seller's market. 6 months of inventory or more is a buyer's market. Right now, inventory levels are at about 2 months worth of standing inventory. And that's up a little bit from, a year ago, but not a lot. So if you're a buyer today, this is a great time to get back into it because you have inventory now, slightly more than what we've experienced in the last few years, but you've got inventory, and this interest rate environment won't last forever. So you've got some variety, and if you can handle the interest rate environment, for maybe a year or two, you'll have more selection today, and then you can refinance out of this higher rate environment as rates start to ease off over the next couple of years.
Yeah, so it sounds like you kind of transitioned a little bit into our second question there, is that, but I think you were kind of approaching it more from the potential buyer angle. So going to our second question coming off of that, how should people use this, the way the market has changed? How should they, people who are in the business, in the real estate business, and again, you already touched on potential buyers a little bit, but how should we absorb this information and utilize it going forward?
Yeah, good question, Brian. And, a lot of how we've use this information, and there's a PowerPoint attached to this for everybody's use, so that you can see articles that are attached to the PowerPoint, so you have actually talking points. Is really the best way to use this information is for sense making, because that's part of our job, as a professional in the industry, is for sense making. And I think right now, there's still more demand than there is supply, so we have people, still looking to buy and then sell. And then the question becomes, how do we use this information so that we can help our customers and clients make sense of the environment, because it's a very fluid environment.
So one of the key points you've kind of addressed over the course of this so far is that the market is really fluid. Things are changing quickly. And I know for a lot of us, that can be a kind of a tough thing to navigate. Change can be scary. Change can be hard. What kind of advice do you have for people during this fluid market situation, the best way for them to handle that change?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Well, you know what? Change is, by its nature, leaving what you know for what you don't know. And but it's also only a moment in time. And so this housing market, for instance, where we basically went from one market, that was very brisk to one that slowed down. What feels kind of precipitously is really a transition into a new environment. So I think anytime that we face change, whether it's professional or personal, we have to understand in the context of that everything is always in a state of change. Change is the one constant, but all change is only a moment in time, and that we will transition out of this environment into another one soon enough. And so again, going back to the sense making, first become educated. That's why we attach all these articles, in the research, for everyone, become fluent in what's going on. And then that will help you make sense of it. And then as you start to make sense of it, you put it into your own words, and then you can help your customers and clients and friends and family make sense of it as well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's really good advice. It makes a lot of sense. I didn't do that on purpose, but I think it does. And I think it's really solid advice that people can use, because I know that's a thing that I have struggled with at times, is when you have, just in our own industry, things are changing constantly, and being able to adapt. And I think the thing that always works for me is kind of what you're saying, is slowing down, digesting what I can digest, what I can understand, and then sort of taking that information and using that as a spring forward. Where do I go from here? Now that I understand what I know, like what is easy for me to understand, I'll take that information and I'll go from there and sort of bridge my way out. And then so all of a sudden this overwhelming, atmosphere of like, oh my gosh, there's so many things changing. What do I do? Becomes something that is much more easy to handle. At least that's been my experience. Is starting with what I know and then going from there. So.
Well,
awesome.
in a loose sense, Brian, the I won't get this translation exactly, but the Chinese symbol for chaos and opportunity is the same. And so in all change or chaos, right, there is opportunity. And I think right now, looking at the market, well, their inventory is coming up. This is going to be a great opportunity for people to find that house that they weren't able to find, a year ago, or people had made half a dozen offers or a dozen offers, and they didn't get accepted. Now they're going to be in an environment where they'll be more likely to find what they want. And so that becomes the opportunity in this environment. Anytime we face change, we have to understand that change in itself is presenting us with opportunity. It's our job to be curious enough to find it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that makes perfect sense. I think that's really helpful, useful, again, actionable advice for people out there listening. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Chris, thank you again for joining me. If you found this information helpful, make sure you follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're enjoying the show on, and join us back here next week for another new episode of Change and the Market.